So I had a professor of business school at Babson, Dr. Kasarjan, and he always said, be careful what you measure because you will drive certain behaviors. So I'm wondering if we could take a step back and think about sort of once companies become digitally connected, what are your thoughts about how they'll drive or achieve certain business goals? Could you talk us through sort of your thoughts about how that flows?
Sure. And I think the quote of your professor is very wise. I recall a moment where it was trendy to ask, CPO to incentivize purchaser or procurement people on the savings they make, and it's tending to push on the saving sides and leave aside the quality. So it's very topical. And I think I'm going to take an analogy here as well. So we often see and describe supply chain and logistics as the nerve system of a company. And digital connectivity would enable a broader network of influence, a wider range of action, I believe, right? So with digital connectivity, I think we will accelerate collaboration, simplify communication. So when we've done that in the past, I've seen the logistics team, spending less time tracking where is my shipment, and more time making business decisions, more time improving processes, more time adding value to patient satisfaction at the end, right? And I would say that digital connectivity is also a way to empower people, right? So if we can redirect the time to more valuable, or I would say more impactful activities, then we can focus on what matters most. And I think in this situation, it could be any of our most pressing business goals regarding to which goals the company wants to pursue.
I've been on the receiving end of those procurement conversations, so that I certainly understand the trade-offs between cost and efficiencies and the quality of services that are provided. And I love that. It's a really good segue into sort of one of my next question, and that's around sort of when you've spent time in the procurement side of things and in the life sciences and healthcare vertical. You've obviously built very strong strategic business relationships with your supply chain partners and a number of outsourced service providers, I'm sure. Could you share for our listeners your historical experiences around the responsibility for global integration, and what are some of the key characteristics you looked for from a 3PL or maybe even a 4PL when contracting these services? What are the things that really help drive your decision making?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually being in procurement for warehousing, transportation, cold chain, and logistics was one of my favorite roles because it helped me combine, supply chain, procurement, logistics all at once. And you're right. I don't know if some of them are listening today, but they used to hear me say a 3PL or a 4PL should inspire trust, transparency, and progress. Because at the end of the day, we entrust the 3PLs or the 4PLs, and we empower them with the health of our patients, right? So when I say trust, I think it starts with impeccable basics. The 3PLs needs to be GDP compliant. They need to have on time in full, a good track records on OTIF, perfect order processing. That must be spotless, right? And with these basics, we can build confidence in a consistent service, which in return will build trust. Then while we build trust, we must also be able to verify, right? It's not just I'm giving my trust and I'm closing my eyes, but we need to be able to verify. So that's where data transparency and accuracy come in. The 3PLs are the eyes and the arms of pharma manufacturers. So it's very important that we can strongly rely on them with the data. So being able to trust the data, verifying the data, and challenging the data is key. And then finally, transparency, right, will lead to continuous improvement. So for the record, and I hope my former suppliers still listen, right? I only engage with 3PLs that sign a contractual continuous improvement clause. That clause requests them to have operational, tactical, strategic commitment to look for continuous improvement and to implement continuous improvement. And to make it fair, it's often attached to a benefit sharing clause. So really the key characteristic in the selection and working with a 3PL or 4PL for me are this trust, transparency. It's fueled by impeccable operational basics, data visibility, and continuous improvement.
I love that. Trust, transparency, and progress. I always say progress, not perfection. That's it's a saying that I've used for many, many years. And sort of referencing back to sorry?
No, sorry, I said wholeheartedly agree.
Oh, good. I love that. And, referencing back to the Gartner reference, I recently read a Gartner document that was talking about broader trends in supply chain contracting, and that there's this move towards longer term contracts that are driving more strategic relationships that are enabling 3-4PLs to make investments that help drive that digital connectivity, help drive more process improvement, and frankly, probably shared cost savings.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So sort of taking this another step further, when we're thinking about the ability to drive that process improvement, the ability to maintain a higher level of service, what are some of the ways in which you see these companies create that digital connectivity?
Yeah, and I think again, there are different levels of maturity according to the need, right? But in my experience, by and large, I think I can split that in four levels of digital integration with 3PLs. And again, it's on a spectrum. It's from fully manual to fully integrated. So the fully manual for me in this case would be no specific system integration whatsoever. All data communication occurs by email or even by fax. So fax, yes, it still exists. You look at import, export, customs, it's infamously known for that, right? Really next to it, semi-manual is what I would call the web portals. So actually, a funny story here, one of my very first tasks in the automotive industry was to convince suppliers to encode their order data and their inventory data in a web interface. And that web interface then was integrated to our ERP. So that's what I would call the semi-manual or web portal approach. Another one, which is a dying approach, but still present sometimes, is the ERP terminals. So basically, we would give a secured and restricted access to the 3PLs to encode transactions directly in the ERP system. And then the last one, which is on the other, I mean, the far end of the spectrum of integration, is the direct EDI integration, electronic data interchange. So here, I mean, our audience know it's a system-to-system connection. The implementation effort is heavy in time, money, and skills because we have so many complex transaction flow to map and data format to adapt. But I think there is a lot of breakthroughs on that world with regards to middlewares or integrated platforms like TraceLink. They really help reducing that complexity and the time for integration. And I'm still very optimistic because we have the boom of the Internet of Things, telematics, APIs, and I think we should see even further significant improvements going forward.
Thank you for that. Two things came to mind while you were walking through those four sort of different models of integration: the manual, the semi-manual or web portal, ERP terminals, and the direct EDI integration. One was, if I'm managing a global pharmaceutical supply chain and I'm forced to go to my 3PL's web portal and pull down data that I need for inventory visibility, and I'm working with multiple 3PLs across different geographies, that's got to add some complexity to my own internal processes.
Oh, it does. It sounds awful, but it's sometimes, if not often, a reality until you have that collaboration and that long-term relationship that allows to build the right IT infrastructure and architecture take away that complexity.
And the other element is security. If you're doing direct integration or you're allowing someone to sort of tap into an ERP terminal, I can only imagine that the elements of data security are of utmost importance.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And in that case, as part of the selection of the provider, there is an IT screening that needs to occur and to see what's the level of firewalls they have and policies internally that prevents leak of data and etc.
Okay, now I'm going to switch it up. You've given us some really good high quality content, but I want to have some fun. So I'm going to challenge you with maybe 2 stories across your many years of experience, a rewarding experience and maybe even a challenging experience. Could you share with us an example of something that you were incredibly proud of in terms of accomplishments and or something that perhaps you found challenging in your career?
You said it's about fun, so I will take a story that it was both rewarding and both challenging. I think that's the perfect combination.
Okay,
and
2 for 1. 1 for 2.
exactly. So and that's around merger and acquisition, right? So over the past 15 years, I had the privilege to contribute and or lead M&A integration in the field of procurement or logistics. And it first started with the Novartis vaccine acquisition by GSK. And then I did the Lohmann animal health integration, Novartis animal health integration, Bayer animal health integration by Elanco. So quite a lot of colorful projects on that front. And I don't want to leak any sensitive information, so I'll speak about one of these cases without precising which one. And you asked me about the challenges. So fun-wise, you get to play with fixed deadlines. So 18 to 24 months to integrate legacy businesses, processes, systems, teams together. That's usually across hundreds of countries, hundreds of contract manufacturers. Very fun. Second is go live across time zones. So we work with North America, Latin America, EMEA, APAC. And the fun part is when you switch on the new systems and you have to do that around the clock. Also, the number of LSPs was really, really fun, looking at as many LSPs as the number of countries that we integrate in average, right? Negotiating the global processes. So moving from a global view into a regional process, into a local process. That also brings always a lot of fun. And the part which is, I think, more challenging than fun is motivating the teams in an uncertain environment. I had a lot of fun doing that, but at the end of the day, there is a lot of stress around those integration that needs to be tackled in a lighter way, but a serious way at the same time, right? So when you go past all these challenges, I think the higher the challenge, the higher the reward usually. And that's why I say it was also extremely rewarding. And in this specific example, I can say, for example, that we reduce warehouse footprint by 33%. We reduce logistics cost by 12% while maintaining service level and actually improving service level. We had a reduction in CO2 emissions by 40%. Of course, at the end of the day, and those 24 months, you have all the business units in one single ERP. So you can click on a button and you can see whatever happens in the globe. And really the highest satisfaction for me is that we end up with one team, right? Which is empowered, inspired for the future.
That's really impressive. The reduction in your warehousing footprint, the reduction in your CO2 emissions, improving your service levels, a really impressive story. And of course, you brought it back to the people and the team, which is where we started the conversation. So that was a great story. Thank you for sharing that. One of the questions that I've repeatedly used on the Orchestrating Outcome series is around supply chain visibility. And it's interesting to me to hear the responses because everybody looks at supply chain visibility a bit differently, depending on your role in an organization. So I'm going to, again, put you on the spot. Could you share with us sort of your thoughts around how would you define supply chain visibility? What are the various facets of visibility when you're thinking about it?
Yeah, and like you said, there's probably a definition per person, but for me, supply chain visibility stands for the ability to see your relevant physical, financial, informational flows into a digital twin, and with the objective to enable a holistic business decision. So for me, supply chain visibility is a means for better decision. In my opinion, seeking visibility for itself is useless. I'd like to take the analogy of a car, right? You collect historical information with the back view mirror, real-time information with your windshield, and then predictive information with your navigator. All this visibility is useless if you're driving nowhere. So similarly, I think supply chain visibility for me is a means to an end and to achieve better decisions and results.
I want to move to outsourcing now because we've talked a little bit about it, but investments in new technologies have, I think, enabled companies to trust third parties to help them in the storage, handling, and distribution of their high value and temperature sensitive cargo. Could you share with us a little bit about sort of how these technologies have enabled or facilitated companies to trust and enable the movement of these goods?
Yeah, sure. And I'm in the supply chain logistics procurement area because there are so many stakeholders, and it gives a window to the internal world and a window to the external world as well, right? And I think that window to the external world is becoming bigger. There is a virtuous circle happening where we have more outsourcing, producing more maturity and more integration. And then that maturity and integration is creating more trust, more transparency. And in returns, it generates more outsourcing. So from that, I see more benefits coming out of outsourcing with time, and probably more investment in that direction.
I know you've said to me before that supply chain is a team sport, and I'm wondering if maybe you could help share with us a little bit about that.
No, absolutely. It's one of my go-to quotes. If I become a teacher one day, I hope I'll be able to to say that to the students. But I like to think of supply chain, high-performing supply chain as a high-performing team, right? Very, very similar, because we have the same challenges. We have the challenge to build trust, the challenge to set clear communication, be effective in conflict resolution, having strong commitment, setting accountabilities, very clear roles and responsibilities, and then eventually sharing collective goals and results. Exactly what a team would need to do to be high performing.
Thank you, Sue. So before we close, I want to take us in a direction that I know is near and dear to your heart, which is sustainability. And I know you've presented a number of times on effectively balancing the opposing pressures of sustainability and general business imperatives. Could you share with us your thoughts on sort of how should companies think about that balancing act between investments and sustainability and the need to drive, of course, business activities, increase revenue, decrease costs, and so forth?
I think, Henry, you know me very well, and it's indeed very close to heart. I've been on a mission to share one message, for a few years. That message is very simple. You can have the cake and eat it too. For me, a more sustainable supply chain is a more efficient supply chain. Sorry, a more sustainable supply chain is a more efficient supply chain eventually. Why? Because performance optimization will lead to better sustainability. Maybe out of many of the cases I've shared, I usually go for three concrete ones, and they are in public display in the Elanco ESG report. One is greener packaging. So our cold chain expert has implemented a compostable cold chain packaging, which is made of cornstarch for the last mile delivery in the US market. And even the gel packs are nitrate based and can be poured in the soil to water plants. So greener packaging. Second one is greener transportation. So we've heard for many years the conventional conversion from air to sea. We pushed it even further. So I led a team to source a pharma-grade railway multimodal solution to serve, from Europe to China. And the rail is faster than the sea, is cheaper than the air, is greener than all modes of transportation. So again, green transportation could be another use case in other companies. And last but not least, greener network design. So like I said, my former global logistics transformation team has in-house network design capabilities. And our studies included CO2 emissions modeling in all the decision mix. So it includes the cost, the lead time, the risk, the working capital, and the CO2 to be able to take, an overarching holistic decision. So in a nutshell, logistics can drive sustainability by design, in packaging, in transportation, in strategy. And I've seen it. It leaves no dilemma when it's balancing business imperatives and sustainability at the end.
I love that. I've always been a fan of rail transport, but I've never heard it described as being faster than sea, cheaper than air, and greener than all other modes of transportation. And on the greener packaging side, I mean, we're here at TraceLink, we're actually working with a leading packaging provider to help improve visibility for the reuse of packages. And it's all around sort of asset utilization, getting those preconditioned shippers back so they can be reconditioned and then sent back out and reused. So that's interesting to see you focus in those areas as well. So before we close, I'd love to give you the opportunity to share with our audience any words of wisdom or key lessons to live by. I mean, you've had such a storied career, which I know is going to continue for many more years, but could you share with us any final thoughts?
Yes, for sure. Maybe I'd like to address this message to the younger generations, right? Supply chains are essential to healthier and a more sustainable world. I know it does not look sexy from the outside, and when I started 20 years ago, it didn't look sexy. But today, if you hesitate between purpose, people, business, technology, sustainability, all these topics that matter in the world today, well, you'll find all of that in the world of logistics and supply chain. So don't take my word for it. Come see for yourselves. And we're always in need of good talents to make a difference.
I love that. Encouraging the next generation to get into supply chain management. Well, Sue, we are extremely grateful for your willingness to share all of these experiences with us today. So thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you for invitation, Henry and TraceLink. And I really appreciate that you're fostering collaboration in our industry. Thank you very much.
I look forward to seeing you in person, hopefully very soon.
I hope so too.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Orchestrating Outcomes. Stay tuned for more episodes as we continue to explore supply chain digitalization and uncover valuable insights you can use for your own digitalization initiatives. Thank you.